Good evening, I am Uyai Anieka and coming to you live from the beautiful hills of Ibiakuran. Today on Spotlight Africa, Kenya Minister of Education says sorry for the abrupt closure. Opposition wants official poll results delayed. Benin banned from UK contracts over South Africa scandal. The European Union lifts Guinea-Bissau soldiers. Plus, court refuses to drop charges against Zimbabwean author. These stories are all just ahead on Spotlight Africa. Do stay with us. We begin Spotlight Africa today with a report that Kenya's education minister has apologized over the controversial and abrupt decision to close schools early, but says it was a necessary pain to ensure that preparations for next week's general elections go on unimpeded. Hundreds of primary and secondary schools are normally used as polling stations in Kenya. However, the decision caught many schools and parents unawares, leading to chaotic scenes as parents scrambled to pick their children from schools at short notice. Road transport was hugely affected in the capital, Nairobi, and other main towns as students were forced to leave schools early. Reports say schools were originally scheduled to close for the midterm break at the end of this week. In another development, Kenyan police have arrested a suspect linked to a transnational drug and wildlife trafficking syndicate and who had been indicted in a U.S. court with 3 others. Kenyan police said detectives from its serious crimes unit arrested Abdi Hussein Ahmed alias Abu Kadi in the central Meru County following a tip-off from the public. It could be recalled that Ahmed was charged in 2019 in a court in the Southern District of New York with conspiracy to traffic rhinoceros horns and elephant species worth $7 million and intent to traffic a kilogram of cocaine. Meanwhile, Kenya's Chief Justice has waived a requirement for lawyers being admitted to the bar to wear traditional ceremonial wigs because of supply issues. Lawyers and judges in Kenya and several other African countries still wear the traditional coiled white wigs on formal occasions, which are a legacy of British colonialism. Chief Justice Martha Koome said the high number of lawyers being admitted as advocates of the High Court had made it difficult for them to get the wigs. Away from that, the U.S. Embassy in Kenya has warned American citizens against traveling to the lakeside city of Kisumu ahead of next week's general election. In a security alert, the embassy says election-related demonstrations may occur in the western city and in some instances may turn violent. Deputy President William Ruto and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga are the 2 leading presidential candidates. Meanwhile, police have arrested 8 people in connection to hate leaflets reportedly warning some communities to leave the Usain Gishu area of the Rift Valley region, where Ruto is popular. Kenyans will be voting for a new president, 47 county governors and senators, members of parliament and local area lawmakers on the 9th of August. Elsewhere, the U.S. management consultancy Bain has been barred from government contracts in Britain because of its involvement in a corruption scandal in South Africa. The Cabinet Office in London said Bain had been guilty of grave professional misconduct during Jacob Zuma's presidency, which ended in disgrace 4 years ago. For its part, Bain said it had apologized for mistakes made by its South Africa office and had repaid all fees from its works with the tax authority, SARS. It has denied acting illegally. Meanwhile, a government-appointed commission in South Africa found that Ben colluded with other private sector companies in a type of corruption known as state capture. In South Africa, we see where police say more than 130 people have been arrested as part of an investigation into last week's gang rape at an abandoned mine in Gauteng province. The previous figure given for the number held was just over 80. It could be recalled that a group of women were attacked while filming a music video. Forensic evidence is still being checked and no rape charges have been brought yet. Most of those arrested have been appearing in court on immigration charges, having allegedly entered South Africa illegally from neighboring Lesotho. Reports say a protest is taking place at Goresendop to the west of Johannesburg, where the attacks took place, calling for more action against illegal mining. Meanwhile, the U.S. has urged Ethiopia to allow unrestricted access to fuel in Tigray region in order for emergency aid to be distributed to areas low on food. It tweeted pictures that showed warehouses full of bags of grain that it says cannot be distributed because of fuel shortages. The U.S. Embassy in Ethiopia said all the emergency food was ready to be distributed by Catholic Relief to Ethiopians in need in the Tigray region, but that humanitarians are waiting for incoming fuel to transport it. Away from that, the UK government says the people of South Sudan are frustrated with the slow implementation of the country's peace agreement and the lack of political will from leaders. President Salva Kiir and his former arch-rival Riek Machar, now first vice president, formed the unity government 2 years ago, but they are yet to create a unified national army of up to 83,000 soldiers, which was a key pillar of the revitalized peace deal signed in 2018 to end 5 years of the conflict. Meanwhile, the transitional period of the agreement expires in February next year. It's expected to culminate with a general election. In the meantime, South Sudanese leaders have signed a roadmap extending the transitional period of their peace agreement for 24 months, starting from 22nd February 2023. President Salva Kiir and his former arch-rival Riek Machar, now first vice president, and other signatories signed the new roadmap in the capital Juba today. The extension of the transitional period means South Sudan will not hold long-awaited elections in February next year. According to the New Deal, an election will be held in December of 2024. The current transitional period expires on the 22nd of February 2023, and it was expected to culminate with a general election, but the leaders have decided to extend the terms of the agreement again. It could be recalled that the unity government in South Sudan was formed in February of 2020, but it is yet to create a unified national army of up to 83,000 troops, which was a key pillar of the peace deal. In separate development, the United Nations Refugee Agency UNHCR says 4.5 million people who have fled their homes in the Democratic Republic of Congo will be forced to sleep in churches, schools, or out in the open because of insufficient funding. Reports say for the past 2 decades, DR Congo has been home to high levels of violence by armed groups, which has left more than 5.6 million internally displaced people, the second highest after Syria. However, less than 20% of funding budgeted to help those in crisis in the country has been secured. Since April, more than 160,000 people have been displaced following clashes between DR Congo's army and armed groups. The UNHCR says it does not have enough money to respond to what they describe as a rising humanitarian crisis in the country. In a related development, a government spokesman in the Democratic Republic of Congo has suggested that the withdrawal of UN peacekeepers from the country could be brought forward. Protests against the UN mission, the second largest in the world, turned into deadly violence over the last 2 weeks, with more than 20 deaths. The crisis escalated on Sunday when 2 peacekeepers opened fire, killing 3 civilians and injuring 15 at a border crossing near Uganda. Meanwhile, the DR Congo government spokesman Patrick Yaya told newsmen that ongoing talks between the government and the UN mission known as MONUSCO could quicken the withdrawal of the peacekeepers. Oman Lala wins Commonwealth men's 100 meters gold. We'll see these on Africa on the Rise when we return. Do stay with us. Thanks for staying tuned. In South Sudan, we see the Western diplomats say they will not attend a meeting convened by President Salva Kiir to discuss a roadmap to implement the country's peace agreement. South Sudan's Foreign Affairs Ministry on Wednesday sent invitations to all diplomatic missions, regional and international non-governmental organizations accredited to South Sudan to attend today's event that will be presided by the president. The meeting was to be attended by First Vice President Riek Machar and the other 4 vice presidents and political parties who were signatories to the revitalized peace deal. According to a statement by the ministry, the event would present the roadmap for the implementation of pending tasks in the agreement. However, the heads of missions of the US, the UK and Norway, known as the Troika for South Sudan, wrote to President Kiir expressing regret that they would not attend. Meanwhile, President Museveni said there has not been an attempt to influence the country's position on the war in Ukraine. Uganda was one of the 16 African countries to abstain on a UN resolution demanding Russia halt the invasion. When asked about his position on the conflict, he made a comparison to the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. He likened NATO's presence in Eastern Europe to the USSR's attempt to house nuclear missiles on Cuba, just miles off the coast of Florida. Museveni said Uganda had supported the US in the face of provocation then and should apply the same principles today. Away from that, the Senegalese opposition has called for the official publication of the results of Sunday's parliamentary to be postponed. The Electoral Commission is due to make a formal announcement, but the leader of the opposition coalition alliance, DC4, said a postponement would give it time to identify irregularities. Another alliance official cited alleged fraud at polling stations in northern regions. Recall that both the opposition alliance and the governing coalition of President Macky Sall claimed victory on the basis of partial results. In another development, the European Union has lifted sanctions imposed against 9 members of the Guinea-Bissau military in May of 2012 over their alleged role in the April 2012 coup. The delisted members of the military are General Augusto Mario, Co-General Saya Breyer, Nav Faka, Cole Thomas, the Saji and Colonel Celestino Di Calvo. Others are Colonel Krenia Damfa, Major General Samuel Fendis, Navy Commander Augusto Salza, Lieutenant Lassana Kamhara, and Lieutenant Colonel Shama Naman. The list, which also included General Antonio Indinjai, initially comprised 6 senior army officials, but was expanded to include 15 other military officials who were banned from traveling to European nations and whose assets in Europe were frozen. Meanwhile, President Umaru Sissoko Embalo has on several occasions called for the lifting of sanctions imposed by the European Union and United Nations against the members of the military implicated in the coup. Meanwhile, the army in Burkina Faso has admitted that civilians were killed during a military operation against jihadists near the border with Togo. The chief of the General Staff, in a statement, offered his condolences. Local residents said more than 30 people died during airstrikes on the Kopianga-Mpongna Road on Monday. Reports say civilian casualties and jihadist attacks have increased since the military seized power in Burkina Faso in January. Meanwhile, Islamist militants have tried to cut off some towns in the north of the country. In a separate development, Ghanaian Winter Olympics sportsman has put a call out on Twitter for a female athlete to compete in the skeleton mixed team event at the 2026 Winter Olympics, after the event was added to the roster by the sporting authorities. The skeleton is a winter sport whereby contestants slide on a small board using their chest. To qualify, the woman must have a Ghana passport or evidence of parents or grandparents born in Ghana. Recall that Frimpong made history when he qualified for the 2018 Winter Olympics in skeleton, making him the first international Ghanaian athlete for that sport. To Egypt now, where an investigation has been launched into the leaking of a photo of the body of a young woman killed by a man whose advances she had rejected. The public prosecution is questioning a nurse at the hospital where Nayara Asharaf was taken after she was stabbed to death outside her university by a fellow student in the city of Mansoura. The leaking of the photo has further outraged Egyptians over a case which prompted heated debate over male violence against women. Meanwhile, the killer Mohammed Adel has been sentenced to death. Meanwhile, a renowned writer, Sidi Dangbana, has tried and failed to get a Zimbabwean court to dismiss charges against her relating to a public protest 2 years ago. Dangbana was arrested during anti-corruption demonstrations in the capital Harare in July of 2020 for carrying placards calling for political reforms. Her friend Julie Burns was arrested alongside her, and both women accused of violating coronavirus protocols and inciting public violence, charges they both deny. Meanwhile, Dangbama expressed disappointment at today's ruling outside the courthouse in Harare. Reports say the 2-year-long court case has been marked by delays, including no-shows by the prosecutor. At one point, it was transferred to an anti-corruption court. On today's Africa on the Rise, Kenya's Ferdinand Omanyala won the men's 100-meter at the Commonwealth Games, a time of 10 minutes 2 seconds. Omanyala won easily ahead of defending champion Akani Simbine of South Africa. Sri Lankan sprinter Yupon Abeyukun took bronze. The 8th fastest man of all time, an African champion, became the first Kenyan to win the Commonwealth Games title. That's all we have for you at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtv.ng. You have been watching Spotlight Africa. I am Uyaya Nyeken. Thanks for watching and do enjoy the rest of your evening.